Time to get started. I'm Nancy Langton, Associate Dean of Accreditation and Strategic Initiatives at the Lewis College of Business, Brad D. Smith Schools of Business at Marshall University. I'm excited to be with you today. Welcome to the Herd Insights Small Business Webinar Series. We thank you for taking the time to attend this event. It's the 14th webinar in this series given by the Lewis College Business faculty and local business professionals. This series showcases the combined expertise of our best faculty and seasoned and knowledgeable practitioners from the business community in which we engage. The goal of the series is to help small businesses achieve success in a changing and dynamic business environment. Before we start the event today, I would like to introduce Avi Mukherjee, Dean of the Lewis College of Business, Brad D. Smith Schools of Business, who will say a few words about the college and its mission.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this exciting event. We appreciate your interest in this Herd 2020 Insights Small Business Webinar Series. The mission of the Lewis College of Business and its Brad D. Smith Schools of Business is to promote economic development in the regional community and beyond. We do this by implementing our strategic priorities for external engagement and economic development, including lifelong learning programs, the Business Leadership Symposium, the Dean's Distinguished Speaker Series, and the CEO panel that many of you have attended. The college has several outreach centers, including the Center for Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation, or the I-Center, that helps small businesses innovate with a focus on design thinking, the Transformative Sales and Service Excellence Center that imparts state-of-the-art sales training and education, and the BB&T Center for Leadership that promotes consulting and research projects between students and the community. The college also cooperates with the Brad D. Smith Business Incubator to help promote entrepreneurship throughout the region. As the nation and the state start rebuilding businesses and economies coming out of the pandemic closures and lockdown, the Lewis College of Business is committed to supporting our local businesses, alumni, and other stakeholders in re-engaging, recharging, and redesigning their business models. Hence, we have developed this webinar series that will consist of thought-provoking presentations throughout the academic year and into the summer, approximately every 2 weeks. We hope that you enjoy today's webinar and take something out of it to use in your business or professional activities to make West Virginia and the surrounding area a better place for business and community engagement. Nancy Langton will now introduce today's speakers.
Thanks, Avi. Today's informative and engaging presentation is titled Embrace, Empower, and Evolve. It is brought to you by Dr. Uday Tate and Alissa Stewart. Uday is a professor of marketing at Marshall University. His expertise is in global marketing, teaching, and research. He is the past director of the Executive MBA program at Marshall University. Alissa is the CEO of Goodwill Industries of Kentucky, Ohio, and the West Virginia area. She is the vice chair of the Mid-Atlantic Goodwill Industries Coalition and has expertise in organizational leadership and change management. Uday and Alissa will discuss how to embrace differences and empower change within your organization to evolve the most impactful team. Please feel free to ask questions via the chat function throughout the presentation. Uday and Alissa will answer these questions at the end. I now turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Nancy. And again, welcome and thank you very much, Dean Avi, for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts with you and our audience today, and hopefully continues to do so. And look at the title. By the way, the title was developed by Alissa, and I'll talk a few minutes about Alissa. First of all, she is executive director of Goodwill, and I was the member of her board, and I can tell you she truly is a leader. And she has developed her organization, Social, into an impactful team. And I think that's where the title comes in. The empowerment, evolution, embracement, inclusivity, etc. That has gotten her organization as a team, and I have seen that, experienced that during the special events and board meetings and what have you. So I wanted to congratulate Alissa for that, and I'm so thankful that she has agreed to share her thoughts, her insights regarding not just the empowerment of women, but also in addition to a variety of different issues that she will talk about. So let me move forward. There you go. Here you go. If I were to show you this, just these 4 pictures, that says it all. I don't even have to move forward. Women empowerment is a global phenomenon. It's a movement. It's a philosophy. It has a different dimensions. Recently, we had Women's Day International. And here is the other is women are powerful, not only in a physical sense, but also in a variety of different dimensions that I will talk about. The term empowerment has been defined in many different ways, and I'm not going to walk you through many of those, but it really is talk about women's developing self-strength, control, power, reliance, personal choices, independence, and what have you. And at the bottom line is the equity between men and women. And I think that's where women empowerment ultimate goal is. And as far as equity between men and women is concerned, let me just say a few words. One is some countries have a long ways to go. Some countries, some ways to go. Countries from Nordic area, such as Belgium, Norway, Sweden, all of these countries are way ahead of the rest of the world in terms of equality between men and women. And we need to, United States and many other countries need to look at them, see how they manage and support and advance women empowerment. I think that would be wonderful. So it is the path to improve financial status, boost their confidence so that they can be on their own, if you will, start their small businesses, not just small, but any business organization. And some of them are CEOs. We have right here, Alissa Stewart, to receive equality, respect, and peace in their household. After all, family is the beginning, and then the surrounding community, society as a whole, and of course, in the global sense. So that's so important for you to have the concept of world women empowerment. Now, why is it necessary? Is essential? Well, it's not just the local issues, it's the global issues. Not only industrialization of a country, but also development of a country. It encompasses different perspectives: social justice, economic development, political progress, education, and of course, at the bottom of the line is the respect in your country, in a society, per se. Another justification is the use of skills. I have said it to my students many times. World population, if you divide them, 50% men, 50% women. And the skill, if we ignore women and their experience, their talent, 50%, we are losing it. And I think that's where some of the things happen. Countries that ignore women's contribution, experience, talents, and skills, they are typically not developed. Again, I'm not going to go through the names of the country, but you can feel it yourself, you know it yourself. And so, and again, women also come across as a leader. They are the mentor, they are the leaders, inspirations for not just for young girls, but also young boys, so that they can develop themselves into better persons. Here is the examples, the pictures of some of women leaders in this country. Susan B. Anthony, role in women's right to vote. Clara Barton, founded American Red Cross. Rosa Parks, civil rights, and so forth. We got Amelia Earhart, and also Sacagawea, I think I pronounced it correctly. She was the one who teamed up with Lewis and Clark, who were across the country, traveling, pioneering. And then you have Sally Ride, first American to go outer space. So these are the ones. And now this is the United States. But what about global? These are the world leaders. The prime minister, chancellors, president of different countries. So this is phenomenal. We have come long ways, and we still have to go long ways so that women are truly in an equal sense. All right. So I just wanted to show you some pictures about that. Now, again, justification, domestic violence is reduced. It's absolutely shameful that some countries, women are treated so badly that, and again, it's not just one or two countries, it's global. Poverty reduction, psychological benefits, all of these things are extremely provide justification to have this movement move forward, be supported, be internalized, and applied across the board. Excuse me. The conceptual foundation of, just briefly, it has 5 different dimensions: economic empowerment, social, psychological, political, and legal. And they interact, by the way, they are not compartmentalized. These are the different dimensions. They are highly interactive, all right, multidimensional. But let's just briefly go over these. Economic development is about wage. Employment means economic power. And we need to have this as a precondition and imperative for women to have equality. We cannot simply say women cannot do this and cannot, no stereotypes, all right? Long-term development, etc., of any society, country, community, depends on the economic empowerment for women. Social empowerment is about this relationship, giving across different race, ethnicity, class system, caste system, religion, what have you, gender. And you got, just to show you, you got Nobel Prize laureate through Mother Teresa. Everybody in the world knows her. She arrived in India in 1929 and passed away in 1997. She was from Eastern European countries. However, she was so much part of India, unbelievable. She developed this system of helping those who needed help, children with leprosy and so forth. The other side here is Malala Yousafzai, popularly known as Malala, the youngest Nobel Prize laureate, 2014. What happened? She was shot. She was Pakistani citizen. She was shot in Afghanistan and that area in the head. And because she was helping young girls in that part of the world where girls are not supposed to go to school. And she said, no, that's not, absolutely useless. So she stood up and she fought for that. She paid the price, but she never backed off. Unbelievably, what a leader she was, sacrificed herself. Psychological empowerment, women have interpersonal, impersonal, behavioral component. They interact with family members, workplace, communities, and that emotional experience, if it is positive, it goes long ways. And then you have political empowerment, participation and involvement in women. And look at this country. We have congresswomen, so to speak. They have more so. 50 years ago, maybe 1, 2. Today, significant number. You agree, disagree with their political foundation? That's not the issue here. Issue is that they are now involved in the politics, and that has impact on social, cultural benefits and advancement of a society. And finally, you got legal empowerment. That is, the laws and rules are there to justify equality in our country in terms of educational opportunities, entrepreneurship, etc. All right. Healthcare provision, protection from violence. All of these things are needed to protect women from legal perspective. Now, there's some hurdles, briefly. Gender discrimination, stereotypes, and again, I'm not going to go through all of these listings. These are the kinds of things that really impede on development of women empowerment. So we need to develop strategies, role of government, non-government agencies, NGOs, legal, social work, education opportunities, high school, etc., equality and health. All of these things are strategies that can be helpful in moving forward with the concept of women empowerment in its true sense, not just the speech, but implementation of that. For that, people need to internalize that, and not simply, well, it's just a talk, let's just move forward. No, this is the real stuff. Role of information and communication technology is important. Role of media outlets. How are the television channels, newspapers, magazines, social media? How can you forget that? Can we not be truthful about what's going on and hopefully develop a true picture and move on and develop? From research point of view, those 5 dimensions can be studied in the light of different hurdles and different benefits. And these dimensions can be studied from global perspective. Cross-cultural studies can be done from our business colleges and what have you. And we have interaction with Cambridge University Institute of Technology in Bangalore, and a couple of universities in Europe, a couple of universities, and I have contacts in Colombia, South America. In China, we have connections. Some of our faculty teach over there. So we can conduct these cross-cultural research to really look at these 5 dimensions from the perspective of benefits and hurdles, both. Now, let me just quickly inform you that Dean Avi Mukherjee has established a task force that consists of a group of faculty, staff, and students, whose responsibility is to develop a framework for policies and best practices to support diversity, inclusivity, and equity, which is the foundation of women empowerment. So I wanted to thank Dean Avi regarding his leadership and vision to have this particular issue among diversity and equity is put forward. And so I wanted to thank again. I wanted to move forward. Now, I will hand over to Alissa Stewart with regard to Goodwill Industries, which is her organization, and how is the power of work, women in leadership roles, and so forth. So I will hand it over to Alissa.
Okay, thank you so very much. I know that Dr. Tate is going to help me with some slides here. If not, I can also share my screen to bring some items up as well. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Tate, for what a wonderful lead-in. I think it's awesome. Here at Goodwill, we do have so many women that are in leadership roles. Actually, 7 out of the 9 of my leadership team are women. But I think it's important to recognize that even though I have an awesome team of fabulous women that are assertive, strong, smart, got great business minds and wonderful hearts, the key really is, like we had talked about, is to embrace, empower, and involve everyone that is involved with your team. Dr. Tate, if you don't care to open up the Herald Dispatch article, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. It's okay. If it's not going to open up, that's okay. Dr. Tate, if you stop sharing, I can go ahead and pull it up.
All right.
It is not a problem.
Okay. Oops. You want to share?
Yeah, that'd be fine. That would be fine. Okay. Are you all able to
There
see
you
it?
go. Yeah.
Okay, great. So anyways, this is an article that shows Women's History Month, and Goodwill has several women in leadership roles. And if you scroll down, you can see the front of our 9th Avenue store. And if you go to the next slide and the next picture, it shows my team of women in a sort of an unconditional sense, because we've got our rollback truck in the back with our recycling containers. And I thought it was a great picture that they took.
We only see a purple screen.
Okay,
Oh, that's, I don't know.
okay. I do not know. So, Dr. Tate, you can go ahead and go back to your screen and I
Okay.
will stop sharing. Go ahead.
Here we go. All right.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. You go to the next, go ahead and go to the next screen. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the embracing and celebrating experiences. If you look at President Barack Obama's quote, and it says, can we see in each other a common humanity, a shared dignity, and recognize how our different experiences have shaped us? I stress this a lot when it comes to the board recruitment, development, and retention as well. I think it's important to include everybody from all walks of life. It could be individuals that are older, younger, race, ethnicity, religion, sex, sexual orientation. But I think the most important thing to remember is really the diversity of thought, where everybody is empowered to speak, share their opinions, share their thoughts, in a safe and open environment where everybody is respected. I think, Dr. Tate, you could give a great example of when you were on our board. And I would always encourage our board members to go and sit in different places when we had celebrations and different things. You care to tell them what I always encourage the board members to do? I don't know if Dr. Tate can hear me right now, but in regards to what happens with the board members, I used to encourage them to go out, to go and sit with the different individuals of the team. If we have our annual meeting, to go and sit with our individuals from the different communities and different walks of life, because a lot of times your board of directors and your leadership team are looked at differently, to where really they're like everybody else, and you want them to go out and be able to embrace and celebrate other people's experience.
May I, Alissa, jump in for a couple of words about those meetings?
Sure.
And during these events, it was incredible experience. On the table, we had person ranging from variety of different employment status. It was equality across the board. And I truly enjoyed listening to their personal stories, how they improved themselves from nothing to skills they developed, computer skills, communication skills, human relation skills. And I think that for me was a learning experience. As being a board director is okay, but that was truly is a great takeaway for me, aside from delightful lunches.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
If you go to the next slide, that would be great. On the next slide, where it talks about how can you develop as a leader to cultivate experience sharing. One of my most favorite books, I have a book club with our leadership team, and the first book that we read was called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And I will go ahead, if you look at it here, it says you can't get to courage without rumbling with vulnerability and embrace the suck. And I know that sounds awful, but it's true. If you go into daring leadership, it talks about a collection of 4 skill sets that are 100% teachable. And what's really nice about her, it allows, once you start reading the Dare to Lead book and you really dive into it, it allows you to step outside of your comfort zone as a leader to where you're really rumbling with that vulnerability. I think more than anything, vulnerability is key to experience sharing, and vulnerability is key to being a leader, because it allows your team to see that we're all doing this together, which builds trust. It's about really putting yourself out there, about being honest, being authentic, being your best self, leading with passion and from your gut, and being graceful all at the same time. I don't know if you're able to get the YouTube.
Let's try that. Let's try that.
We can try.
Yeah.
It's a great clip.
I'm about to drink some mud,
Oh,
and I think you should too.
not that.
People often ask us why we are called mud.
There you go.
In order for transformation to happen, in order for there to be success by any metric, money, stock price, market share, whatever your metric is, You can't get there without brave leaders and courageous cultures.
You can teach courage.
Oh, you can absolutely teach courage. 4 skill sets. Number 1 being vulnerability.
I bet you that not too many years ago, if you had corporate leaders talking about their vulnerability and discussing shame in the office place, they'd have been laughed out of the office.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still the case in some places. It's just, if you're at the top of a Fortune 500 company and your success metric depends on creativity and innovation, and you've set up a culture where vulnerability is seen as weakness, don't expect great results.
Don't expect the creativity.
No, because I mean, innovation by definition is idea, iteration, failure, iteration, failure, iteration. Places where they're doing the most remarkable kind of high risk, high reward innovating, huge tolerances for vulnerability. And so if you have leaders who are either preaching a gospel of vulnerability as weakness or modeling that, just don't expect great things.
You have said that vulnerability without boundaries is not vulnerability.
Mm-mm.
What do you mean by that? I'm not sure I understand.
When I go work with organizations, sometimes I'll hear someone say something like, how often should I cry in front of my team? And I'm like, oh my God, like, that's not what I'm saying. Vulnerability is not about, self-disclosure. Like, I know leaders who never cry, who are very vulnerable and transparent. And I know leaders who cry all the time, who are just BSers. If there's, vulnerability is great. Faux vulnerability are like fake vulnerability, because vulnerability seems to be a thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
That pisses people off.
So you're not advocating for people to just put it all out there.
All I'm saying about vulnerability is that when you are in uncertainty, when you feel at risk, when you feel exposed, don't tap out. Stay brave, stay uncomfortable, stay in the cringy moment, lean into the hard conversation, and keep leading.
We're good to stop, Dr. Tate.
That's all.
Sure.
What you heard, everyone, as part of Brene Brown speaking about vulnerability, there's multiple videos on YouTube. And there's also a great TED Talk that I've also had our leaders, and which is absolutely outstanding. So if you get the opportunity to watch the TED Talk especially, it is great. Dr. Tate, when you're ready, if you can go to the next slide, that would be great. We're close. Back a few more. Right there. It's the one that has the person. It's the next slide. Okay, I'm going to keep on going. On the next slide, it talks about Dare to Lead. And if you go to daretolead.brenebrown.com, it's an awesome website that has a myriad of different things available on it. It's the next slide, Dr. Tate. And if you keep clicking, the things will pop up. If you read the definition of leader on Dare to Lead on brenebrown.com, it is this. It says, anyone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes and has the courage to develop that potential. It's not about the titles or the corner office. It's about the willing to step up, put yourself out there, and lean into the courage. So if you see the different quotes that I have on here, it's really talking about, there's a wonderful modified version of The Man in the Arena by Theodore Roosevelt, which is here in the corner. And if you see it, it says it's not the critic who counts, not the man or the woman who points out how strong one stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the woman or man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by death, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who comes short again and again, but there is no effort without error or shortcoming. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but you can see where it's going. It's a wonderful modified version of The Man in the Arena. And it really talks about, there's a lot of people that are going to be so very judgy on all the things that you or your organization might need to be doing. But if they're not out there in the arena with you, don't worry about it. They love to pass judgment, but usually the ones that are passing judgment are usually the ones sitting on the sideline. You can go to the next slide, Dr. Tate. The next thing we're talking about is a lot of different tools and resources to foster the vulnerability in your organization. First, we talked about the couple of things with Dare to Lead. I also want to talk about personality styles. I work with a gentleman named Chuck Stump from the performance group out of Taze Valley. And every single year, we always do our personality style assessment with not only our leadership team, but with the other team members. And it's so very important to recognize where your team members are in regards to their personality style as well as your own. For example, like I'm a number 2. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm a number 2. I'm very assertive, very outgoing, very social. I'm always like, hey, where's the party at? To where, for example, my finance director is much more introverted, loves the history of things, is very methodical. So the questions would be, I've asked people that maybe are more introverted before, to go out and market things or go and talk about different things, go give public presentations. So could you see, for example, maybe my finance director doing that when that's not where his strengths are at? It would be more up my alley as to where that's why we complement each other well, because I know where to place the individuals within our organization due to their strengths and opportunities. The other one that is really good is that our second book that we've read was Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. Wonderful, wonderful book that really focuses on being real and not having to live it into people's expectations. And it's great when you're talking about the embrace, empower, and involve, because everybody thinks you have to be like somebody else or what they expect you to be. And really, again, it's going back to being your best self. Another great tool to check out in your organization is the highlighted one, and you don't have to go to it, Dr. Tate. That's something maybe we can send out the PowerPoint at the end to everybody that they can look at. But if you Google Clifton Strengths Finder, it rates your top 35 strengths of yourself. And then what I had everybody do is I had them post them up on huge Post-it notes in the room, and we could see that everybody's top 10 and their bottom 10. And it was really interesting because you could see like my top 5 are strategic thinker, visionary, woo, salesperson, and my first one was futuristic. So it makes sense in the role that I'm in. For example, back to my finance director, his was history, very analytical, to where that is something that I am not. So again, it's great to really foster that vulnerability so everybody can see their strengths and opportunities within that room. You can go to the next slide, Dr. Tate, that would be great. I thought this was an awesome quote to put up here. It was talking about diversity is being invited to the party. And a lot of places are really good about that, but inclusion is being asked to the dance. So I think we've done a really great job here at Goodwill at doing that with our board of directors, our employees. Again, if you're going to have the diversity on your board with your team and your volunteers, it's to make sure that, again, we can invite them there, but if I don't ask them to participate at the topics at hand and and participate in the change process, it really doesn't make any difference. You can have all the diversity in the room, but if you don't have the inclusion, it's not going to make any difference at all. So it is very important. Let me explain how we do that here at Goodwill. A lot of people think, it's just people with disabilities, but it's not. We have people with disabilities. We have people that have been ex-felons, people that have been homeless, former drug users and sellers, for example. And I always remind our team of this, is that the people that are the most disabled are the ones that think they're perfect. They are the ones that usually have the most issues going on. So I do always I remind my team of that all the time. But people are like, oh my gosh, you have a bunch of, people with disabilities, felons, former, probably have current drug users too. But it's taken their talents and what they're really good at. So example, if it was somebody that was in drug sales, well, obviously they know how to network, they know how to sell, they're great marketers, they could be great people on the sales floor. It's taken what their strengths were, empowering them to be the absolute best person that they could be. Dr. Tate, if you go to the next slide, that would be wonderful. The next part where I thought it was a great quote, it was talk about we need diversity of thought in the world to face the new challenges. And how do we foster that diverse thinking? I think, first it has to start from, your board, your leadership team, and should be filtered throughout your whole organization. But most importantly, it really needs to include your customers. It could be, and we're constantly seeking feedback, from not only the customers that are in our stores, but a lot of individuals don't know this. We run the rest area on 64. So I'll have my team up there ask the people that shop at the rest area their feedback. A lot of people don't know that we operate Huntington and Bloom downtown, all the beautiful flowers. We always ask the people, we get unsolicited comments for that when all my team's out watering them, but we get feedback on that. We have a therapy center here, and we get a tremendous amount of feedback from the individuals that we counsel, because again, your customers are going to provide you a tremendous amount of information that is going to allow you to foster that diverse thinking, so you'll be able to embrace the change and make your organization the best that it can be. I think, again, the most important thing to embrace and involve and empower is really to start with yourself. There's a lot of different motivational books, different things that you can read out there, but I think it goes back to what I had talked about before, about being your best self, being authentic, being honest, lead with passion and from your gut, and being graceful at the same time. Again, I think it's Dr. Tate, you gave me a great lead in, and you really focused on women's empowerment, and obviously we find that very important here. But I think it's important to recognize everybody, because everybody brings their strengths and opportunities. I don't believe in the word weakness. You really have to focus on what the opportunities are. But I think to really embrace, involve, and empower is to start with yourself. And again, always try to work on your training and development with your team, your board of directors, and your staff to make it the best organization that you can be. So Nancy, I think it is back to you, because I think.
Well, if I may add a couple of points before we go for Q&A. Alissa, you made an outstanding point here, that it's not just about empowerment of women, but it is diversity, inclusivity. And you mentioned about people with disadvantages, mental, physical, etc., psychological, and especially the physical disadvantage. I'll give you very quickly a couple of experiences. Remember, autism was considered about 30, 40, 50 years ago, oh, this child is possessed by a devil. That's how it was considered. But today, autism is a medical condition. I had a student with autism, and this person was totally visually challenged, completely. Only person who was helping him in the class was the service dog, Labrador. Mustang was his name. I still remember that. And this young man presented PowerPoint in the class. Now you would say, wait a minute, now he's visually challenged. He was in a team. How did he do that? Well, the team, you mentioned about the team, they had their system of signals somehow. I didn't know that. And one of the team members would forward the slides, and this person, visually challenged, would talk about that. Mm-hmm. And they had to have a tie like this. Everybody, including Mustang, he had a tie, Marshall. He was sitting right there. Only thing he didn't like was Mustang was fiddling around with his tie. But other than that, it was an outstanding experience for me to learn about this. How in the world this person who cannot see anything 6 inches from his face, and yet he made presentation that was absolutely outstanding. And not only inclusivity, but also teamwork that you mentioned. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about the organization is one thing, but converting that into a team, that is the challenge. And I really appreciate your bringing out that thought, that philosophy to us. Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome. I think the reason why I can keep it in touch so much is to where I have 5 children. I have a 28-year-old, 22, and 3 18-year-olds. Yes, I said 3 18-year-olds. So my youngest in grade level, 18-year-old, I adopted when he was 5 and a half. And he had never been in a car. He had never taken a shower, taken a bath, brushed his teeth, had his ears cleaned, teeth brushed, you name it. And just to show you where everybody can embrace, empower, and evolve. Again, he only knew 30 words of Chinese when I adopted him. 7 years later, at the age of 12, he raced in the USA track and field at Laidley Field in the 800. He won for the state of West Virginia, and he does have multiple developmental disabilities and hearing loss. And this wasn't the Special Olympics, which he runs in as well, but it was the USA track and field, and he won. So then we drove to Louisville, and he raced in. And he won that too in the 800. And he ran in the National Junior Olympic trials at the age of 12, just a short time after I adopted him. And I think it was awesome. He ran that 800 for any runners out there in 2:20. 2:20 at the age of 12, he was cranking that half mile out. So just to show you, I mean, we all have our gifts and we all have the ability to definitely embrace, empower, and evolve. And he now works 40 hours a week at Chick-fil-A and goes to Spring Valley as a 10th grader in ROTC. So you just never know. There's plenty of potential with everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Uday and Alissa, for an enthusiastic, informative, and insightful presentation today, and some really great personal stories like the one you just shared. It will help us think more about how small businesses can empower women and create a diversified team. I'll now read some of the questions that were posted during the event and some that arrived by email before the event. The first question is, what is key when defining how a leader empowers his or her team?
Alissa, go ahead.
I think the most important is really, like I had read that leadership definition before, is really finding the potential in your people that you have, no matter if it's at home or at work, and really having the courage to develop that potential. I know a lot of leaders like to hold on to a lot of information themselves and don't allow it to, go into the other individuals on their team. And I think that's crazy. I think it does a lot of damage, is that you really need to allow them to know everything that they can and really have the courage to develop that. And that might mean that they might leave, but that's okay. That means, maybe they're going on to bigger and better things. I don't have to hold on to one of those team members I think that's just stifling.
That's one of the things that I emphasize to my students. I said, you're our product. You're a customer, but you're also our product. And we don't want you to go out and memorize marketing is this and accounting is that. We want you to experience teamwork, honesty, integrity, respect for others. All of these are values that are lifelong values, because you can expert in multiple choice and it's over. Corporations, companies, organizations don't ask you what is marketing. They will ask you, what's your experience in the classroom? Teamwork is important. Having students with different challenges in the class, and how do you interact with them? That is important. Those are the lessons. We really have to make sure that our students go through that so that they can prepare themselves for the society, and not only for the job point of view, but as a civic person. How do I say that? Yeah.
I agree with you very much. The degree can actually open the door for you and get you the interview, but really it's your soft skills and your integrity and your character that will let you walk through the door. It's those lifelong soft skills of, being passionate and having the drive and the being a risk taker to be able to get, that'll get you through the door. It won't be the degree. The degree will just open it.
Go ahead.
Okay, we have another question. This one goes back to the empowerment dimensions that Dr. Tate talked about earlier. Which one do you think small businesses need to be the most aware of?
But the small businesses, it's a challenge. Whether it's a small business or big corporation doesn't make any difference. To start any business, women have to understand they will face some hurdles. They will be facing. And That's where Goodwill comes in. They prepare them to face these hurdles. And I think for running a business is not just making a money, but it's about contribution going back to society, going back to your employees, your customers. And so for me, training them through different workshops, for example, that Goodwill conducts that. I know that they do. I'm also a member of Unlimited Future Incorporated, which is, again, it helps small businesses, disadvantaged communities, and what have you. So really, it is important to help women stand up, not simply giving them on the table, yeah, this is what it is, take it, move on. No, let them face the challenge. As Alissa was saying, that you have to really make them self-confidence. You face the challenge, you resolve the issues, and move on. And I think that's what small businesses, running of small businesses by women is important. And I think small businesses are the heart and soul of any society, including the United States. If we don't have small businesses, it's all done. I know we have Microsoft and Apple and what have you, but or GM and Ford Motors. But beyond that, it's the community, small business community. That's important.
Yeah, I think it's important too to remember that they are also role models. So there's other girls and guys that are going to watch and try to emulate them, and I think that's very important too because they're very inspiring to other people.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Another question is, how come learning your team's individual personality styles is so important?
Go ahead, Alissa.
I think, again, it was like we were discussing before, is that once you know more about your team and your team members, you're going to be better able to place them and what they're strong at, but also be able to coach them in regards to what their opportunities are. I don't believe in weakness. Again, I think it's just an opportunity to be able to learn more. But I think, again, back to the personality styles, to where we do have some turnover here being retail. That's why I think it's key that we work on that every single year. So the more that we get to know each other as a leadership team, the biggest thing that you're going to find out of learning those personality styles, and it filters throughout your whole organization, is trust. So if you're going to go into the first thing about being vulnerable and trying to be strong as a leader, it really goes back to those personality styles and knowing where people's strengths are, but also giving them the opportunity to be coached and, you know, being able to have the training and development to be able to be the best individual they can be, to work on the opportunities that they may have.
I think, Alissa, you took one word, outstanding, and I'm trying to be that person, coaching. I would like to sing that I'm not a professor, I'm a coach. Because a professor has a tendency to look at it, well, I'm going to tell you this and you follow that. Typically, that's what happens. But I would like to be a very effective coach in the classroom that is finding out the strengths and weaknesses of my student on an individual basis, on a team basis, just like a coach for football or soccer or basketball. They look at each person's strength and they build on that. And if there are weaknesses, they will try and overcome those. And I think I would like to do that in the classroom. Every year I make an attempt. So far I'm not that successful, but I would like to be coach rather than a professor or educator or teacher, whatever. I would like, actually I dislike those terms for me. I would like to be regarded as a coach.
Okay, great. We have another question. Do you see businesses having resources to help with women empowerment issues?
Go ahead, Alissa.
I think there's a wide variety of different tools and resources that are out there to inspire women. There's, again, a lot of different foundations that provide a lot of that. So really, it goes as simple as just Googling. I know that sounds very simple, but it is. It's Googling and just going to the women's empowerment. Again, the books that we were reading now in regards to like Girl Wash Your Face, Girl Stop Apologizing, those are very empowering. I can tell you from a personal perspective, when I read it, there's a lot of stereotypes and experiences that people expect women to fulfill and go through. And it's not always that, and you don't always have to meet those expectations. So I think it's important that you just try to live, again, be passionate and from your gut, and to be yourself and be authentic. And then when you go and look at the different things from like what I'd shown you on like the Brene Brown, the Clifton Strengths Finder, and the different tools and resources and books and such that you can look at, it's just going to empower you even more, no matter if it's a male or female. I even asked my 2 guys that are on my leadership team about reading Girl Wash Your Face and Girl Stop Apologizing before they read it, and they absolutely love it, probably just as much or more than my females that are on the leadership team, just because they're like, oh my gosh, my wife talks about that all the time, or oh, my daughter does this. So it's been even empowering for them, which is really cool to see.
As far as resources are concerned, we have small business administration. We got state level, federal level, community level, local chambers of commerce we have. They conduct many workshops for entrepreneurship, small business, and what have you. And I think that's important, that information is communicated to various different segments, not just women, but those with disadvantages, may not have enough skills or confidence to run a business. So that the other thing that I wanted to share with you in regard to resources is the internships that Goodwill has provided many opportunities. I know some of my students, they went through the internship that Goodwill provides in Huntington area, and they learn a lot from them. When they come back and they say, well, Dr. Tate, it's not about 3-hour credit hours that I earn, it's the lifetime credit hours that I have learned. And I think that was fascinating for me to know about that, how they were treated respectfully, they were provided weaknesses and strength that we talked about. And I really wanted to thank, on behalf of Marshall and College of Business, Alissa's contribution and Goodwill's contribution to train our students in that direction. Thank you, Alissa.
You're welcome. Yeah, we love our interns. They're great.
All right, another question having to do with leadership. Is it okay that you as a leader not always have all the answers?
Oh gosh, yes. There's no way that you can have all the answers. I mean, that's a given, but I think that's what you have your team for. I mean, you always surround yourself, like say, with people smarter than yourselves, and I definitely have. So, you know, again, you can always go to your team and allow them to answer. And if they don't know, I think you just be honest and say, hey, I really don't know, but let's go find out.
Well, you know, a leader doesn't mean simply giving orders, like you said, Alissa. It's a teamwork. I was in the Indian Army, and I can tell you, of course, in the Army, you have a lot of hierarchy. You got to command, but on the battlefield, it's the same. You have to protect your subordinates, and then they have to protect you. So it's a teamwork. Again, if you start bringing your rank over there, it's not going to work. Of course, it's there, but it's not going to work. But on the other hand, leadership is also a good follower, that you need to listen to people, what they have to say, and be open-minded about your weaknesses as a leader. No one is perfect in that sense. So that's, for me, leadership is a complex concept, if you will. There are some internal value systems, and then you have external value system, and you have to combine all of those together. And for me, that is the leadership of good leading and good following and good listening.
Thanks a lot. This wraps it up for today's Herd Insights Small Business webinar. We want to announce our next webinar that will be on April 12th. It is titled Herd Sight, Eyes on Employment of the Blind. It will be a panel consisting of Jeff Bosley, Chairman of the board Sound Good LLC, Anthony Candela, Outreach Coordinator for BookReach Benetech, and Randy Geike, singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist. The panel will be moderated by College of Business faculty member, Associate Professor, Dr. Ralph McKinney. Thank you for your participation today and look for your registration email to arrive shortly. Also, please share the email with anyone you think will benefit from this event. Again, we appreciate your participation and always remember, we are Marshall.